guys at Sin City Iron in Las Vegas with Stan, and today he's gonna kill my chest, but that's gonna be hard because have you seen it?
It's awesome.
Right?
We're gonna make it more awesome.
So what are we gonna do today?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna give you guys 3 different things that you can learn today, tools for your toolbox. One, 4 days ago, suffered a little bit of a shoulder strain, pulled muscle, and so I'm gonna.
Sure, he suffered a shoulder. All of a sudden, he can't lift with me anymore.
I might still be able to outlift if I get under the bar. I might still be able to outlift.
Sure about that?
But I'm going to talk you through what you do when that kind of thing happens. 2, we're going to talk about the best hypertrophy exercises, and then 3, I'm going to talk about a sticking point in your max bench, and we're going to be able to tackle all 3 today in one workout.
My sticking point is usually at the top when I complete the rep.
Yeah. Well, we'll be able to do all of that today. Good height for me. Do you need me to lower that for you?
No, I think
you got it?
Yeah, I think it's good.
All right, jump in there. Let's. We can just warm up with the bar. And everybody has their own personal preference for warm-ups. Really, all you need to do is get your body temperature up, maybe get your heartbeat going a little bit of a sweat on possibly. Sometimes I'll even push a sled. I'll push and then walk into it and push just to try and warm up the chest. It's personal preference. Or we just get under a bar and use just the bar through the range of motion that we're going to utilize for the movement. And that's plenty. You don't need to do a whole bunch of extra stuff.
Just did 100.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, hurt my shoulder about 4 days ago lifting, a little strain or a pulled muscle, and it's tight. The best thing is you can do when you get an injury like that is to keep moving it through whatever range of motion causes you minimal pain, but move it early and often, okay, before you start loading it necessarily. A lot of times initially there's very little range of motion and people are pretty stressed, and what Greg Nuckols refers to as kinesiophobic. They're afraid to move because it hurts, when in fact that's the most important thing that you can do. So you find a range of motion that you can move within with minimal pain, and you start to do that frequently throughout the day. Once you do that, say 3 or 4 times a day, you might just sit there and find, like 4 days ago, I couldn't lift my arm at all, forward or back. It was just completely stuck. And then from just slowly finding positions that worked, you just keep doing this. I might do 100 reps just like this. And then gradually over time, you start with range of motion, then you work into endurance, and then gradually start loading it over time. And if you're going to go see a physical therapist or a chiropractor, they're really facilitators of movement. They help you find patterns of motion or maybe relieve some pain so that you can then move, but it's the movement itself that's most important. So I'll probably be going pretty light today. Also important when you get an injury, train the other side. If you get a left quad injury, train the right quad. If you have a left side injury up here, chest or shoulder, train the right side. There's some good evidence that suggests that helps you retain your mass in both sides throughout the thing. So we'll see if I can even get a full bench press today.
Do you think you need a spot?
No, I'm good here.
Are you sure?
Yep.
About that? All right.
And that doesn't feel too bad.
So right now, are you stopping specifically for that range of motion where there's no pain?
Yeah, if I went a little deeper, it's not too bad.
Oh, I see.
Not too bad.
So you think you could probably keep up then, huh?
It's mostly rear delt, and rear delt doesn't have a lot of involvement in this movement, so I'm pretty good. Not bad. You're up, brother. Let's throw a plate on there, see what happens.
What do you want, put the 5s on?
No, man, we're going right to 45. Bart's gonna have a field day with me today. We'll do 1-arm dumbbell presses. We'll challenge each other on that.
Oh my goodness.
Now I mentioned hypertrophy and strength, 2 different things. We train them differently. Hypertrophy, what I focus on is the greatest range of motion I can possibly get. So obviously I want Bart to get good deep elbows and a nice stretch across the pec. My favorite exercise, the one that Flex had me do most when I trained with him in 2009, was the dumbbells actually, and we'll go to that next. We'll do a slight incline on the dumbbell press, just because you can get more stretch on the pec. And when the muscle's in the lengthened position, it tends to respond better to hypertrophy in all the studies that we've done. Same thing would be true with the quad, with any muscle group, the lats. If you can get a full stretch, a nice lengthened position, you're going to get more hypertrophy benefit out of it. So we'll jump into those. For well over 20 years, I was benching 500 pounds every week in training, and I didn't have a very strong chest as bodybuilding went. You know, I was strong.
Like in terms of development?
In terms of development.
Oh.
And it wasn't until 2009 when I trained with Flex that he wouldn't let me bench.
Can't you just go like this?
Yeah, I wish that worked. There's no site-specific benefit to training or to injections. But he would have me do dumbbells mostly for a greater range of motion. People tend to recruit muscles differently, uniquely. So say, for instance, on a multi-joint movement like a bench, you use your chest, shoulders, and triceps. Different individuals will use chest, shoulders, or triceps to a greater degree than others.
Like some people might be tricep dominant or shoulder dominant or something.
And they may respond better, like their chest might grow faster than their shoulders or triceps. And another individual might have tricep growth more than their chest or shoulders. What seems to help with that is just because when they lift, certain muscles tend to contract better for them. I tended to be a front delt guy. I always had real big front delts, but not a lot of upper chest. And it's recruitment. And generally what you can do is either before or as part of the workout later, if you find a specific exercise, like a lot of people want to focus up here on the clavicular tie-in and on the sternum here. And they want it, so they'll use the kind of exercise that comes across the body up here. Doing that exercise might help you so that next time you bench, recruit that muscle better. And so it might not exclusively be that exercise that grows the chest, but it might also contribute to a more
activate it more on another exercise.
Activate it more on the bench press. So that in that kind of way, whether you do it as kind of a pre-exhaust or whether you just do that exercise as part of your training, it can help.
I see.
Find your weak point, isolate it, and it might be able to recruit better for the bench. Let's see what happens here.
You're gonna max out right now?
Yep, this is it.
Okay.
Ooh, you might be in trouble. That doesn't feel too bad. I might beat Bart today.
No, I think you should, your shoulder, you gotta watch out for it. You're 55, you don't wanna have irreparable damages.
Yeah.
Put a 5 on?
No, we're going right. Do another plate?
Yeah. How many reps am I trying to do here?
Doesn't really matter. You get the same hypertrophy result from a 5-rep set with 85% of your 1 rep max, or a 12-rep set with 70%, or a 20-rep set with 50%.
What do you want me to do?
As long as you get to within a rep or two of failure.
Okay.
I kind of like to stay, you get more fatigue, you get more strength out of the 5-rep set, but you probably also get a little more fatigue.
Okay.
So for bodybuilding, just for sheer volume, I kind of like that 8 to 12 range.
Okay.
And so let's see if we can stay in that range today.
Right. Stay in the, for me, I'm the lower the reps, the better.
And again, controlling the weight on the way down and feeling that stretch rather than utilizing any kind of bounce or anything like that.
So lift like a
People
bodybuilder.
bounce through there and it uses a lot of tendon, and they don't actually get the length and position of the muscle to feel all the stress at the bottom.
I see.
So let's be deliberate about it and let's press out of the hole rather than bouncing.
Okay.
There you go. And of course, that always lends itself well to powerlifting anyhow because you can't bounce.
Yeah.
But that's a good stretch. We'll give it a try. We'll see what happens here.
Good luck. It's pretty heavy stuff.
It is.
Looks good.
Felt pretty good. Now let's do something. I don't know if you people want to watch every set and every rep of an entire chest workout. So let's do something different on this one that's more focused on strength and specifically on sticking point. I did a 500-pound bench, or attempted a few weeks ago on my Instagram, you saw it. And I tend to explode pretty hard off the chest. And I use that momentum to power through my sticking point, and then, like you said, then sometimes you can lock out, sometimes you can't, whether or not you developed enough momentum. Well, if you don't train that sticking point and learn to strain in that sticking point, you're gonna have a hard time building a top end because you're always just gonna peter out right here. You're gonna stop. And so we wanna train that sticking point. One of the best exercises for that particular sticking point, for those people who heave pretty hard and then can't lock out, is the Spoto press. And your Spoto used to come down and stop about 4 inches above the chest, stop, so now you got no momentum. stop, and press. Not only have no momentum, but you're moving at such a pace that your body learns to strain, and your triceps in particular, right here, learn to grind through that position. And you can start to build up, you know, obviously the accessories initially, because it's just triceps, you're gonna go down in weight a little bit.
I see.
But gradually over time, if you can, through that accessory, increase the amount of weight you can do there, you'll then eventually be able to increase your total bench.
I see.
So let's try that on this set. We're gonna go down about 4 inches above. We're gonna stop,
Okay.
and then we're gonna press. Still a great chest workout, but it's gonna give us some specific sticking point work for that tricep.
Got it.
We're purposely gonna make a brief pause so we're not benefiting from any of the stretch reflex. 4 inches above the chest. Just stop and grind through. Probably not heavy enough, but let's stop and press. Good. No bouncing, grind through. Good. Nice. Feel a little more tricep on that one?
Yeah.
I'll try the same.
Feels pretty good, actually. Nice. Yeah, it feels pretty good. It feels like you have like a controlled obstacle. You're putting yourself in a more difficult position and you're forcing yourself to power through it.
Yep, there's something to be said about the speed at which the bar moves that replicates that which would be performed in a powerlifting meet. And if you haven't felt the strain and you're not able to momentum your way through, then you're gonna get stuck. You get pinned on a big lift in a powerlifting meet. So you want to train that range at that speed with the weight that would give you a similar kind of grind, so you learn to hang in there through those hard points. A lot of people, they get to sticking points and they just fail. But if you learn to be able to grind by practicing that in training, then you're going to have a better time being able to get through that in meet.
We're going to put a 5 on there?
Whatever you want. You're making fun of me now.
How many reps are we going for? 5 to 8?
Yeah, that's probably a good one.
I could try it.
Fives are good. Quarter on there?
Yeah. I know.
So we identify a weakness or a sticking point. You could call it a weakness.
Yeah.
And then we just hang out there. We just find accessories that improve that weakness, and then overall will almost always improve. It should be measurable, progressible, and transferable. If you get better at a spoto press, but your bench press doesn't get better, then you probably should find a different accessory that'll actually make your bench press get better. I'd say the same thing about a deadlift. When I get better at box squats, my deadlift goes up. So I know it's kind of a good measuring stick for me, because you can't just keep maxing out every week like we talked about. You want to use accessories that are somewhat lower than your 1 rep max, because those are things you can build on over time with less fatigue.
1, 2, 3.
Good.
13 reps right there.
Hop back down here one time. I want to show, I can talk about it and you can rewind it and see it on the video, but I want to grab your grip again. You'll notice his wrist is like this, and the weight is here. I call that no man's land, okay? I want the weight over top of your forearm, the bones of your forearm.
Like this?
Yep. When you're lifting,
it's right here.
You're here and it's all bent back.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why these things need to be used. You probably use those less and less. One of the ways you can do that is by trying to put the bar here.
Oh,
see how the bar is here
Yeah.
as opposed to here. Now we're stacking the weight on this part of your hand, which sits over top of the bone. as opposed to rolling back. If that's comfortable for you and you can push a little more with this pad of your hand right there,
Yeah.
that's on the bar, that is going to stack here. You're not going to feel as much of this.
I see.
You want to try one more time?
Yeah.
Just one more rep, getting yourself, just slightly rotating your hand so it sits on this portion of the pad. Now when you push on the bar, do you feel it's going right into this bone?
Oh, yeah,
as opposed to rolling the wrist back?
Yeah.
See how that feels? Again, it doesn't always feel great the first time.
I might have to try it with lighter weight, though.
Yeah. Well, the goal obviously would be that ultimately over time that would be your preferable position to get heavier weights.
I see.
Because now you're going to keep exposing that weakness. You'll have to strap your
Tighter and
and get longer and longer and longer wraps.
Yeah. Maybe I should try without wraps.
That's be a great idea, just because I think you'll feel
I'll feel it better, more,
that
right?
push.
Yeah.
And your elbows will flare out a little bit because you've rotated your hand a little bit.
Yeah, because it's not here anymore, it's more
It's
here.
not quite as tucked, and that's okay. We'll work with that. I'll give you a lift off.
Yep, one. Is this in the right area?
Yeah, right
Okay.
there.
Okay. One.
You just feel it pushing here.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. It does feel different.
You have to get used to it.
I think I just have to get used to it, yeah.
Yep. Let's go ahead and leave it there for me. Same thing. If you watch my wrist.
But if it's better, I'd rather do what's
Yeah.
better.
I don't want to be here.
Yeah, I see.
I want to be here. See, it's a big difference between that and that. I'm pushing right there on that part of my hand because it's over top of the bones of the arm.
I kind of wonder now when I'm doing my overhead presses if I'm doing that wrong too. If I'm doing it here rather than more.
Same thing in the overhead presses. You ever watch a Mark Ripito starting strength overhead press tutorial? To show you when you grab the bar, if you turn your fingers pointing this direction, that kind of, and then roll it back, it's going to automatically put that bar there.
Oh.
Try that next time you load up. I found that when my hands are here and I go to do a shoulder press, that there's more strain on the shoulder than if they're here.
I see.
And the fingers are pointed this direction.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll try that next
And
time.
then you roll it back and press. I just
Okay.
find less strain on the shoulder.
Okay.
Want to do one more?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
So there's a lot less roll on that wrist. That probably
Yeah.
felt pretty stable. It's something to get used to.
My palms are tender now.
Yeah, you'll have to put some lotion on those. We don't want you to get any calluses. That's not very manly.
Yeah.
So we talked about get a shoulder injury, move early and often through whatever range of motion that you can do with minimal pain. And then when you have a powerlifting sticking point, pause the weight in that sticking point. Like for example, if we were going to squat and your sticking point was just out of the hole, then you might set up some chains to where you squat down and the weight stops right in your sticking point and you're forced to press out of that position and feel the strain in that position. And that way when you do stretch reflex and hit the sticking point, you've trained to grind through and gotten stronger in that particular position that momentum was taking you through previously, so you weren't really training it. So same thing on both exercises. Now if we're talking strictly hypertrophy, then I'm jumping on that dumbbell press. Let's head over there. This was the one exercise that I think provided me the most fullness to my muscles when I trained with flex. And you know, I've got old videos of me doing 200-pound dumbbells, you know, and they were, you know, they're this long, and I'm doing reps. Problem is that it wasn't sufficient depth to really maximize hypertrophy. So I don't think I went over 100-pound dumbbell training with flex when I was actually had a top end of say 200.
Wow.
Because he made me arch my chest up, keep my shoulders back.
Yeah.
Because I'm shoulder dominant.
Yeah.
So he exposed my weakness, took me through an incredible range of motion, slowed me down, pause in the hole, and press out of the movement. What you do up here is probably not too terribly important because the tension isn't on the chest up there.
Oh, I see.
But just getting the full stretches and contracting through. Touch them for convenience if you want, but this is the position that you want to be focused on the most. And a lot of people will bounce out of that position.
Yeah.
And kind of a little bit like, like the calf presses, you want to hold the weight.
I see.
To dissipate that stretch reflex, that the tendons will do some of the movements, and then you're not getting as much exposure for the calf as in this case the chest.
I see.
So let's grab whatever weight you can handle. We're thinking 10 reps, 8 to 10 reps.
I'll start.
And we're going to try and get deep on these.
Start with these guys. And try to go deep?
Yep.
Start with these guys first. Or maybe I should start at 50s. Oh, no, I'll start with these. Okay.
That seat will flop up 1, 2. I think so. Yeah, let me do this. Yeah, one more time. One more. There we go. Now, under control, I know that the tendency is to want to bounce it out of there because you want to be able to lift more weight or more reps, but that's not as important as getting that full stretch and controlling the weight. Feel a really good stretch down here in the pec. And this is Schoenfeld's research. So they had a really good study recently on leg extensions where they showed if your legs are, if your knee angle is at its greatest and your calves are touching your hamstrings, that stretch position yielded more hypertrophy growth than than the upper portion of the lift. So they would have people do leg extensions, and one group did from 90 to full extension.
Yeah.
The other group did from way under here just to 90. And at full stretch, this group, full stretch to 90, had more hypertrophy. So focus on the stretch of the muscle. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Exactly the way that Flex had me train in 09. I had the most significant growth response and fullness from that. Powerlifting didn't lend itself well to that because you're using momentum where you can, you're using leverages, you're trying to use multiple muscle groups to affect the largest lift that you can.
Yeah.
And in bodybuilding, we're trying to expose that muscle, isolate it, and stretch it to full length. So what I'm going to do here, because the dumbbells will probably mess with his shoulder a little bit, again, I talked about training the other pec. So I'll do a one-hand dumbbell on this one.
So you're only going to do 60 pounds? Because I did 120 then.
That's right.
Okay. For the record.
I'm going to want a rematch.
No, I retire after this. I see that you're going into like a neutral position at the bottom. Is that what I should be doing too?
Not necessarily. It's just that up here, you get more shoulder in the movement.
Yeah.
Down here a little bit, it's more pec.
Oh,
and so I kind of stay down here.
Okay.
I'm also concerned as an old power lifter that I want to stay in a position that's least likely to cause me a pec strain or tear or a shoulder strain or tear. I don't know, recently you may have seen that Ryan had his arm way out to the side when he did that 500-pound incline press, Ryan Crowley, and he yeah, with Larry, and he popped his pec, and that's from that position. Ooh. If he had stayed in here, you may or may not have gotten the lift, but at least you're not as exposed to injury.
So one thing I noticed about myself is when I'm doing the incline bench, I'm so used to getting like a good arch on the flat bench.
Yep.
Sometimes I set up here and I just have like powerlifter habits. If I get too much of an arch, does that kind of make it more of a flat bench now, and is that taking away from hitting the pecs?
I don't think so. Again, I mentioned that people tend to recruit different muscles based on maybe their strong points and their anatomy. The degree of angle, I don't think, a lot of folks talk about if you're inclined, you're going to work more up here. You work the whole pec. I just like the fact that you can get a really significant stretch in this position. So let's just focus, because that whole muscle is going to contract. It's hard to isolate just one certain portion of it. What you want to do is try and get the shoulder out of the movement as much as you can by arching up and keeping the shoulders down. Most people tend to do this. Do the same thing on bicep curls. You'll tend to get your shoulder into the movement, and that's why I would do the, either an isolation or the incline, so it's just bicep. Anything you could do to isolate and eliminate some of those supporting muscle groups.
I see.
And the body doesn't know weight, so it doesn't matter.
I see.
Once you start incorporating the more shoulder into the movement, you can lift more weight, but it's not just the pec doing the movement. And if we just quickly bounce down the list of the evidence-based guidelines for hypertrophy, I put a chart in the ebook that you could kind of go through. People always want to know what's the best split, and it's really the one you'll comply with. The best time to train is the one that you'll actually do consistently. So we talked about training frequency. Probably better to train everything twice a week. Twice is better than once. 3 times may, if you're prioritizing a particular muscle group and you decrease the amount of volume on other muscle groups, it may be a good time to be able to focus on building one muscle group up by going 3 times a week, presuming you can recover. You can train as long as and as hard as that from which you can recover. Twice a week, 5 to 10 sets per body part per week, which means that in any one given workout for chest, you start getting north of, say, 6, 7 good hard working sets within a rep or 2 of failure, probably don't see more results. It becomes pretty asymptotic. It goes to the point where you get diminishing returns, and you might just create more fatigue for less return on that investment.
I see.
More isn't necessarily better in that regard. So somewhere between 5 and 10 sets per body part.
Total sets? So like if we did 3 over there,
working
3
sets,
over here.
I wouldn't count your warm-ups. If you jump on this and you do the 50s for 10, the 60s for 10, the 70s for 10, and you grab the 80s for 8, you did 1 set. Everything else wasn't within a rep or 2 of failure. That's the condition. I see. That's the caveat. The set counts.
5 to 10 sets of 2 failure.
To within a rep or 2 of failure.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's another component in terms of effort. You don't necessarily need to go 2 failure. You get within a rep or 2. And this coming from an old power lifter who took everything to failure every week for decades, the research doesn't support it. I just suffered.
For no reason.
A lot of muscle soreness as a result, but again, soreness isn't the driver of hypertrophy.
I see.
Someone warm up to say they're doing 80 for incline, right? Warm up to that and then hit 80 for a few sets? Or
that's what I like to do. So rather than doing the 50s for 10, the 60s for 10, the 70s for 10, I might just get a little warm up going. I'll do the 50s for 2, the 60s for 2, the 70s for 2, and save it for my top sets. It's kind of, you see a lot of this in Dorian's philosophy, the blood and guts, where he would do. He would just do a decent warm-up, and then he would get under and do his top set.
And then stay at the 80s for a while.
Stay there. Get 1 or 2 or 3 sets in, depending on how much you felt you need. And 5 really good sets, what we see in some of the recent research suggests that might be enough. And then you don't need to do 7 different exercises, maybe 2. So with a flat bench and an incline dumbbell, if we had 3 really hard sets over there and 3 really hard sets here, might be time to go home. You can build a whole workout around just a couple of really hard top sets, but make sure that they meet all of that criterion, that you're within a rep or 2 of failure, you're getting a full range of motion, you're isolating the muscle group. And so those are kind of the big things. And then we talked a little earlier about pace or tempo or time under tension. And it appears that you get a good result somewhere between 2 and 6 seconds, and there's probably not anything superior to any of those time frames. Just control the weight and press it. These 10, 20-second negatives doesn't appear to show any improved hypertrophy response. So probably unnecessary, probably uniquely fatiguing, unnecessarily so, because that eccentric long load might do a significant amount of damage, but the stimulus to fatigue ratio isn't any, it's more fatigue, less, and no additional stimulus.
I see. Oh, someone's showing off, huh? Okay.
That was too light. I think that's what Gio was using when she was in here the other day.
Yeah, I mean, Gio's barely a woman. I'm gonna have to use the 100s too then. Those are good stretches.
You want me to leave this here for you?
Yeah, I'll use 2 hands.
There he goes.
So when you're doing just one-sided, I feel like common sense seems like you're gonna build one side over the other, but what's like the actual like science behind it?
I wish I knew. I just read the research. Whatever Brad Schoenfeld says,
Yeah.
that's what I do. I trust it wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
He's smarter than me. And he has put forth some research that suggests when you have an injury, if you train the other side, then you retain strength and size to a greater degree than you would if you didn't.
I see.
And so that's the philosophy or the science. I just can't explain it.
If I had to guess, maybe it has something to do with your brain sending signals to your body and it wants to develop symmetrically somehow, maybe? I don't know.
Let's call Brad.
Called red?
Brad.
Yeah, maybe we should call him instead. Because I spend years brushing my teeth with my right hand and my left hand still sucks.
There's other things you do. That's why your right forearm's larger.
Hey! I don't even know if I can do these. I'll try it. Okay. Damn. 100 pounds?
You can do it.
Are you sure, dude?
Well, I can only spot the right side because this shoulder hurts. So you better do the left all on your own. Good work. Good.
20.
Awesome.
Oh, man, 20 of them. That was great.
You know, one thing I didn't cover on that evidence-based hierarchy is rest periods. And a lot of folks, particularly as they get pre-contest, think they need to speed up their rest periods because I don't know if they think they're going to burn more fat or they're going to tone better. Actually, all the research suggests that you want to be north of 2 minutes.
North
and
of 2
probably
minutes.
closer to 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And one of the ways you can measure that is each subsequent set should be pretty close to the same weight and reps as the first top set. Maybe you drop off a rep by the third set. But if you're dropping off 20%, 30% plus, it becomes more muscular endurance, maybe lactate clearance, oxygen debt, than it does hypertrophy. So you want to get sufficient recovery from your rest period. On a big squat, it might be 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know some people think that's powerlifting, but in fact, with respect to measuring hypertrophy response, when you take 60 or 90-second rests, particularly on large multi-joint movements, it might be okay for a bicep curl or a calf press.
Yeah.
Then your subsequent sets, volume load, sets times reps times weight, may start to decline to a point where you're not really getting the maximum mechanical tension, which is the primary driver of growth, right? And you might drop 2, 3, 4 reps between the first and third set. And that, again, compromises your potential hypertrophy. So getting people to rest is hard, particularly women. Now, in a case where you've got...
Just want to keep going, huh?
Yeah, they just want to keep going. They feel as though they're burning more calories.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's not the purpose of weight training.
Yeah.
It's training, it's not exercise. Again, it's not burpees and battle ropes. It needs to be progressive, measurable, progressible. And so with weight training specifically, you're training to build muscles. Let's use the optimum science and training methods to do such and not try and turn it into a cardiovascular exercise. So that's one of the big challenges we have with women. Now, if you're in a hurry, you're a busy professional, you got to get in and out, and you want to get more body parts in, then superset opposing or antagonistic body parts. So now you do an incline dumbbell press, rest a minute, go do a lat pull down.
Yeah.
Rest a minute, do an incline dumbbell press.
But in total, it's like
2.5 to 3 minutes between dumbbell presses.
Yeah,
you get sufficient recovery to where you can lift just as much weight as last time.
Gotcha.
I usually have my little timer going to help me on both ends, to make me wait long enough and to make sure I don't wait too long. And so I keep my timer out. How many did Bart get?
What's that?
How many did you get?
I think I got 20. How many did you get?
I know he didn't do 20, but I had to do 20 just because he said 20.
Wow. All right, now I'm gonna have to do 20 with the 50s. I know. Okay. Yeah, I know, he did it good. Oh, that is a hard. 100 is crazy. Holy. I got a question, a bodybuilding question.
Shoot.
So, for powerlifting, we compete with the flat bench, so we have to train that.
Yep.
But in regards to like hypertrophy and building out your body, do you think there's any like benefit, or do you think the bench press has to be included, or can it be done with just
these
like
are just
incline or hammer strength?
They're just tools. And again, people are individualistic. Some people respond really well to a bench press. As I mentioned, I got a lot of shoulder, not a lot of chest out of it. And so you might want to utilize different exercises. They're just tools, and there's not a better than, and it's certainly not across the population. So I would just select the one that you think gives you the best range of motion, and you're able to isolate the area that you're trying to grow.
I see.
Well, typically I'd be done. I might throw in a couple sets. Remember I mentioned earlier that if there's a particular part of the muscle that you want to get to contract better, then I might find an exercise that does that. I have one of my favorites, is that handle with that low to high movement here, just because I really think this is one of the most beautiful portions for a chest and bodybuilder aesthetics goes, is the upper portion of the chest. And so I like to finish the workout with maybe 2 sets, just bringing this from low to high across the body and doing what this part of the muscle does. Contracts up here. So I'll show you that. So this one here, I try and get a good stretch on it, and then I'm just going to come across the body and up.
Oh, okay.
And try and, I put my hand here so I can get kind of a mind muscle connection.
And you kind of have the cable come from behind you?
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure there's tension on it back here as well.
I see.
That's the full stretch position.
Yeah.
And then try and contract it up here. And I'll do 2 sets probably to really focus on that position. I won't do this arm because of the shoulder, but I'll have you tackle this. You might want to lighten that up a bit.
I'll start really light just so I could really feel it. So make sure I have like tension like this.
Yep, and then put your hands right there.
Slight bent arm.
Yep. And up and across.
And then where I bring it to
there
my
it is.
eyes.
Yep.
My eyes. Oh, I feel it.
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, you feel that.
I think this side has less mind-muscle connection than this one.
That's why I like unilateral movements.
Yeah.
It's kind of why we do walking lunges. It's, you know, it's why we do an assortment of one-leg movements. Same thing here. Even a one-arm dumbbell, I feel more ability to isolate and control, as opposed to a two-arm. Just for a couple of sets.
Like this, it's tight on my right side.
Yep.
I go up here, and it's kind of squishy. Like it's only flexing like 70% of the weight or 80% of the weight.
Yeah.
Oh, if I bring my elbow down, I do feel it. Oh, okay.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
And then over time, I think you'll be able to contract that better on a multi-joint movement.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
So those are my favorites. Those are my big three for bodybuilding, and of course,
Flat bench, incline with really good range of motion, slight pause, and then more in a cable. What would this be called? Like cable?
Yeah, just a fly, and then the direction of the fly would determine potentially where most of the focus is on the muscle.
It's very cool. So those are my 3 favorite tips for bodybuilding. I'm glad I was able to share it with my good friend over here.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
I'm a work in progress.
Hope to see you step on stage one day with me, and because I think you have a good career ahead of you.
Awesome. Any other questions, man? We did pretty good today. We covered what to do for injury rehab.
That's it. Do you have any other questions for me or no?
No, I'm doing pretty good.
Okay, good.
Yeah, when I get back into it big time, I might call on your services.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right, thank you so much.
Good work, guys.
Yeah.